Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Chalk Talk. I am your host, Kim Davis. Happy Tuesday. It is the first Tuesday of the last month of 2023. Can you guys believe it? It is December. Today is December the 5th. It is the first Tuesday of December, the last month of 2023. And if you are like me, you have some things you still have to get done in 2023, some things that you absolutely said you would finish. You have time. Just don't lollygag. You've got what, 26 days left? So welcome to Chalk Talk, everybody. As your little encouragement to get whatever done that you had on your calendar for 2023. Pick one thing and try to finish it up. All right, so there is so much to get to today. I'm excited as always about today's show. Thank you for being a part of the Chalk Talk family, the tribe, if you will. We are going to talk about a few things on today's show, and I look forward to your input and engagement. That always makes this a whole lot more entertaining and fun. But first, before I even tell you about the people who help us do this show each and every week in terms of their great support, I want to remind you, if you are in many parts of the country, but definitely if you happen to be in Houston, today is the last day to early vote. So if you have not voted, you can vote today. Election day is Saturday, but you can vote today. The weather's great. The polls are open to 7 p.m. Make sure you get out and vote. And just as a reminder, even if you did not vote in the general election, you can vote in the runoff. It is super important. Mayor for the city of Houston is on the ballot, 7 council seats, some at large, 4 of the 5 at-large seats are on the ballot, and there are some district seats on the ballot. So make sure you get out and vote. Go to harrisvotes.com. You can find out where the early polling locations are. There are 41 in Harris County. If you happen to be on that Fort Bend edge, that also allows you to vote in these city elections. There are 3 early voting locations in your area. So make sure you vote. Today is the last day to early vote. And if you miss today for some reason, you still have Saturday. But I always say, just do it today to make sure you get it in. So vote, vote, vote. It's important. Your voice matters. Elections have consequences. All right. So as always, a special thanks to the people who supported Chalk Talk and help us do this. I'm excited about some new people coming on at the start of the year. I'm excited about some remote locations that we're going to be broadcasting from, where you get a chance to come out and visit. If you like live, we will start doing that. Definitely a part coming on in February. We may do some just spotty, different, random or various, we won't say random locations later this month. And also definitely in January. So be on the lookout, pay attention, make sure that I have your information. DM me, email me, kimydavis.com, send a note wherever you're watching the show, but make sure that you stay in touch so we can let you know all the fun things that are happening. So as always, I want to tell you about our good friends over at I Love Jinka. Kim and LJ Williams have been supporting Chalk Talk for quite some time, and we love the product and we love what it's doing for people. If you've not experienced Jinka, you don't want to miss out on this product. You can get it as a paste, you can get it as a powder or a vegan capsule. And what does it do? It helps with anything that causes inflammation in your body. It helps with aches and pains, joint pain. It helps with some people who suffer from some respiratory issues. This product is, a little miracle worker in a jar or a capsule, if you will. It's 7 roots and herbs. The ingredient that really makes everything go is a high quality grade of turmeric. And then it's with some other, minerals and herbs that make the product taste good if you use it as a paste, but it makes it work and give you the benefits you need. If you are in Southeast Texas, you can get it at HEB. If you're not, you can get it online. I Love Jinka. They ship everywhere. And here is what it looks like and where you can find it if you go to HEB.
Here at HEB in the Healthy Living Department of Probiotics, you can find Jinka 7 days a week.
Yeah. Okay, a lot of Jinka sale. Look at that. Twinkle.
And I also want to tell you about Kimmy Treats, right? Great snacks, great vegan popcorn. The Kimmy bars, let me tell you, they are not vegan, but it's a great, great snack. You will not be disappointed. You can get all of those things on the website at kimmytreats.com. If you are in Houston, you can also pick them up over at Sunshine's Vegetarian Deli on Old Spanish Trail. I will be restocking at Sunshine's later today. So you can swing by and pick up some Kimmy Treats. That's the vegan popcorn, it's the Kimmy bars, and it is the body butter. You definitely want to have body butter in your life, especially as the weather gets a little cooler. I think you need body butter all the time. You will not be disappointed. And so I encourage you to check out Kimmy Treats online or in person in the store at Sunshine's. Here are some of the options. All right, so let's get at it. And there's kind of a community spotlight that I'm going to start doing with some small businesses. And there's one I want to tell you about. They're one of the owners and uh, executive chefs is going to come and join me in an interview. But I don't want you to wait for that. I've mentioned it before, but if you have not tried, I'm trying to get the address. I can give you the exact location. If you've not been to Kuji Kitchen, Kuji Kitchen, do yourself a favor, check them out. It is a lot of farm to table food, which means the products, the ingredients are fresh, things are made fresh, great, great products, and they cook things that are seasonal. I don't know if you're aware, but we should really eat, when we talk about eating vegetable and fruit, we should eat things that are in the season where they grow. That way that's how you can really ensure that they're freshest and best quality. It's non-GMO. And so what are the fall things? What are the vegetables? What are the things that we eat in the fall? So I'm going to have Chef Keisha join me in an interview, hopefully in the coming weeks. It's really on me, not her. She's agreed to do it. Check out Fuji Kitchen. If you happen to be anywhere in Houston, you can go. But if you're in Southeast Houston, it's on the corner of MLK Boulevard and Reed Road. It is the cutest little spot. The food is amazing, and it's a really good price point. So check Fuji Kitchen and tell Chef Keisha that you heard about it on Chalk Talk. So I want to encourage you to go by and see what they're doing. And listen, nothing kind for your palate. Good morning, everybody. Remember, today is the last day of early voting. I'm going to say that a few times throughout the program because I think it's really important that we vote. I never tell you who to vote for, but I absolutely encourage you to vote. And I'm hoping that if you have been watching and been a part of the Chalk Talk family, that you have gotten registered, because we talk about being registered all year long. We don't just wait for election season. So if you're registered, and even if you say, well, Kim, I didn't vote in the general election, it's okay. Go back, go today and vote in the runoff. Or if you say, I voted in the general, well, you got to vote in the runoff because the positions have not been finalized. So make sure that you vote. It's not a lengthy ballot, but it's a super important ballot. So I'm encouraging you to do that. Good morning, Sylvia. That is my sister. One of my sisters, Sylvia Sims. Welcome, welcome. She also is one who would definitely encourage you to vote if you have not done so yet. So here's what's happening in the world of sports, right? It's been a busy, busy time since we were last together. The Houston Texans, many of you want to know what is happening with those Texans. Well, the Texans won again. They beat the Broncos on Sunday at NRG Stadium. The final was 22-17. It was a big win for the Texans. Any win, actually, is a big win for the Texans. They improved their record to 7-5. I think it took them, that's 7 is the number of wins they got the last 2 seasons combined. I'm just saying, they're 7-5, clearly in the hunt for a playoff spot. They are in contention. This Texans team could be in the playoffs. they really controlled their own destiny. They had a tough loss against Jacksonville a couple of weeks ago. They bounced back on Sunday with a win at home against the Denver Broncos. The Broncos came into Houston and NRG Stadium as really probably the hottest team in the NFL. They had won 5 straight after starting 1-5 and getting, really impressed Miami by giving up 70 points. Turn things around, still have a Russell Wilson who is a guy you got to watch, who can still hurt you, and won that game. And again, the game went down to the wire, right? I said something earlier before the game. I did a little pregame chalk talk. And I said, listen, hopefully, here are the keys to win, and hopefully they don't have any last minute theatrics, right? Well, the game was won on an interception in the end zone by the Texans. The Texans intercepted Russell Westbrook in the zone in the last seconds of the game in what would have been the game winner for the Broncos. So it was an exciting game. And we talked about before the game, what were some of the things the Texans needed to do to be successful? Well, they needed to take care of the ball because the Broncos had been doing a really good job of turning teams over. They had 15 takeaways since week 8. The Texans had no turnovers. I mean, if CJ fumbled a snap once, someone had a fumble, but it was recovered by the Texans, so they didn't turn over at all. That was huge, especially because that secondary is, if not the toughest, one of the toughest the Texans have faced this season. So no turnovers. CJ threw for, I think, 274 yards, some big plays. They had some big offensive plays, still not getting converting as much on 3rd and 4th down as I'm sure Coach Ryans would like, but a little better than the previous week. And they made big defensive plays. They had Derek Stingley Jr. had 2 interceptions. He wore back for the first time. He'd been out. He's been injured. He was back on the field. He is the one who caught who made the interception in their own end zone to seal the win, to keep the Broncos from scoring a go-ahead touchdown with seconds left on the clock. So it was an exciting game. It went down to the wire. That's just how they do it over there on Kirby. But listen, to finish like that and to win, I think you take that instead of the alternative. Here at Coach DeMeco Ryans talking about that after the game on Sunday, about these late down to the wire finishes.
Games, and this is the NFL every week. And that's why they have their red zone channel. It comes down to that last moment every single week. Every game seems like it's within a score, right? So it's how you operate in that moment, right? Not blinking, not panicking. It's like everybody being under control, calm in the moment, and just executing. And that's what our team is continuing to show each and every week.
One of the things that they did lose, on Sunday, was wide receiver, little energizer bunny guy who really has been such a huge part of this team in his rookie season, and that's wide receiver Tank Dell. He went out with a broken leg, fibula. Was it tibia? Anyway, he broke his leg, and he's out for the season. Tough loss for the team, tough loss for Tank because he'd been playing really well. And, unfortunately, it's a part of the game. And I've heard people say, why was he blocking? Why did they have him blocking? He's 165 pounds dripping wet. Why is he down there, blocking on a run? Well, they all block. And, you could argue that, okay, maybe he shouldn't have been in the mix. I have a couple colleagues who feel that way. I don't know. I think it's unfortunately it's a part of the game, and it was an unfortunate injury for Tank, an unfortunate loss for him because of the kind of season he's having, and an unfortunate loss for this Houston Texans team. But they have been dealing with the mindset of next man up the entire season in terms of dealing with injuries, players who they thought would be here who aren't. It is the nature of football, and they know that firsthand. But they got sick performances from others. Brevin Jordan had a breakout game. He looked really good. Good to have him back on the field. Of course, Dalton Schultz is out. He's still banged up. I think he's nursing a hamstring injury. And Nico Collins continues to be a factor. Nico ended up with 191 receiving yards. He also got in the end zone. So it was, listen, Nico is having clearly the best season of his career. Okay, I was going to pull up the final stats for you from the game, but he is having really clearly the best season of his career. And what does that mean? It's great for the Texans, and for him, it means he's going to get paid in the offseason because he will be. Come on, let's see. Let's go to the game tracker so I can tell you about the last game. Here we go. No, no. Okay. So in terms of the final, let's do yeah, it's being difficult. Okay, here we go. So in terms of Texans offense, Nico Collins, 9 receptions for 191 yards. That's about a 21-yard average per catch, but his longest was 59 yards. He was targeted 12 times. He pulled down 9 of them. Clearly, he was the biggest receiver on the day. Um, they finished with 292 yards receiving. CJ Stroud finished with 274 yards. He was 16 of 27, 106.1 passer rating. Not another 300-yard game, but another stellar performance. He looked really, really good. He continues to just make some really big plays. Brevin Jordan had a 27-yard reception. He looked good. And they just continue to do some things well. The run game is still not quite where they want it to be. They ended up with 89 yards total rushing, 41 from Damian Pierce, who carried the ball 15 times, and then 36 yards from Devin Singletary, who carried the ball 8 times. Working through it, right? Still trying to get the run game really going, but defensively, they were very, very impressive. I mentioned that Derek Stingley Jr. had 2 interceptions. So that's now 4 INTs for him in 3 games. He has looked really good since he's gotten back in action. And Will Anderson Jr., who some people were saying they gave up this pick for him in the first round, the third pick, and they traded, the future picks away to get him. And if you listen, we talk about how he has done things that don't necessarily show up in the stats sheet, right? In terms of, did he get a sack? Did he tackle, have a tackle for loss, a TFL? He's done things. He is being disruptive, but he had things that actually show up on the stat sheet. So he had 5 total tackles on Sunday. He had 2 sacks, which were for a loss of 15 yards. He tipped the ball at one of the interceptions that Derek Stingley Jr. grabbed. Will Anderson tipped it. He got a piece of a punt, so a partial block of punt. He was very, very active and disruptive, and he continues to be that. Jimmy Ward had an interception. I mentioned Derek Stingley Jr., 2 interceptions. So it was, defensively, it was a good day. They made the defensive plays when they needed to. And we talked about them limiting the big explosive plays on the other side. They had a couple. Cortland Sutton did have a 45-yard reception, and Jerry Jeudy had a 41-yard reception. But at the end of the day, the Houston Texans come out with the win, right? Russell Westbrook, 15 of 26, 186 yards, 1 touchdown, and 3 interceptions. So, and from the ground, the Broncos have been doing a good job of running the ball. They finished with 118 yards rushing and one rushing TD, and that was Russell Wilson had the scoring, the touchdown. So listen, all you can do is this Texans team is continuing to do what it takes to win. They are continuing to grow. I think what DeMeco Collins has been doing is nothing short of really amazing. Leadership matters. And this is not a knock on the previous two coaches, because people like to always jump that. It is about having some resources, the talent, some additional talent, and it's also about resources in terms of talent, and the leadership of DeMeco, him putting together the staff he wanted, and that staff being productive and effective. So it's exciting to watch. Good morning, my friend. Hello, Charles. Hello. Always glad to have you in the, in the room, if you will. And so this Texans team is just, it's fun to watch. We talk about CJ Stroud every week. We talk about what he does. I'm gonna let you hear from Brevin Jordan on the win, losing Tank Dell, on the big game that Nico Collins had, and on how much is this was the my cause, my cleats day, where teams all around the league, players had their cleats decorated with a cause that was important to them. And so Brevin Jordan had, in honor of his mom, who is a breast cancer survivor, had his cleats done up for in breast cancer. And so he, going into the game, he said that was important to him, because when he looked down, it made him think of his mother. He talked about that. But here's Brevin Jordan, who he was back. He had a big game. He had one run down the sideline that he was careful not to step out. He had 3 receptions for 64 yards. His longest was 27. So 27 yards. So it was a big day for Brevin Jordan. He had an impact on this football game. And here is him talking about it after the game.
Yeah, man, it takes my light-skinned twin. That's my dog, man. He gonna be all right, man. He a soldier. He a man of Christ. He gonna be good. He gonna get back to work. We're gonna be all right. We're gonna win some games for him.
How about Nico's game?
Unbelievable. That's my dog. Me and Nico came in together, so me and Nico talk about everything, man. Nico's really been like my lean on. When times get hard for me, Nico would just be like, keep going day by day. So me and Nico really lean on each other. That's my guy.
How crazy is this? I mean, just you think right now that you guys are inside track for the AFC wild card, play some playoffs, just smiling kind of comes.
It's huge, man. I'm excited. I mean, you guys know the last 2 years been rough. It's been rough. 3 games, 4 game win seasons is tough, man. So for us to, kill all doubt. Everybody had us saying we were going to win 3-4 games this year or whatever. It's not the same Houston Texans. It's not the same Houston Texans. So for us to be in this position, we've worked for it. We expected this fully.
What does it mean to you to represent your mom today? So are you pleased?
My mom's my foundation, man. My mom's my rock. I hope I did enough work. I dropped the lookie, shouldn't have dropped that. That slant across the middle, shouldn't have dropped it. But those cleats, man, really got me going today. I kept looking at this cleats and I was like, I'm going to put on today.
Brevin.
That's Brevin Jordan, and he said, I hope I did enough. You did enough, Brevin. He had a great game, and, in the absence of Dalton Schultz, who has been a factor for this team, to have him step in and step up the way he did is important. So, you hear people say often, you hear coaches say when there's injuries, next man up, and it sounds like coach speak. But in the NFL, where there's injuries all the time, they're not always season ending, like Tank Dell, the broken leg. But they tend to be injured. It's a physical game, and so you just hope that nobody's hurt too badly. I'm watching the game last night on Monday Night Football, Cincinnati and the Jaguars, and I see Trevor Lawrence go down. You just always hate to see anybody get injured. For me, when I see an ankle injury, I feel that, right? I feel those ankle injuries, because that's the injury I had, and then I continue to struggle with to this day. So all the way back in college, 3 surgeries later. And so when I see an ankle injury, I just kind of naturally cringe. And I have hated to see that last night. We'll talk about that game in a moment. But Texans really have been successful at having next man up. Last week, we saw Titus Howard go out for the season. They've had so many injuries and changes on the offensive line. Kenyon Green never even started the season. He went on IR for the whole season right after camp. So, it is it is not just next man up, but having the mentality as a team, feeling like you can still compete and you can still win and you can still do what you have to get done. And that starts with the tone that your head coach sets. And that's DeMeco Ryans, who, yes, should be in the conversation as NFL Coach of the Year. He should be one of the top 3 coaches. And when you talk about who might be NFL Coach of the Year, one of the someone asked him about that a couple weeks ago, and he said, "Listen, he didn't really care about it." You know, and of course, if he were to win it, he would accept it. He'd be gracious and be appreciative. I have no doubt of it. But it's not his focus. He wants to see this team get better every week. And they have a legitimate shot at getting to the playoffs, right? They have a shot of getting to the playoffs. I'll see if I can pull up something that shows where the NFL playoff kind of run is. So they are in the hunt. They're at 7-5. And the reason that last night I was pulling for Cincinnati in that game, playing Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars, who happen to be leading the division the Texans are in place. They were 8-3 going into last night. They had a shot of having the best record in the AFC. Well, they're 8-4. And we don't know how bad the Trevor Lawrence injury is. It may be a sprain, is what I'm hearing. And who knows how long it takes them back. They can tape that thing up. How effective will he be dealing with an ankle sprain? Is it a high ankle sprain? Is it an ankle sprain? It doesn't sound like anything was open, but they're doing all of those tests last night and then this morning. And so let me see if there's something that's come out about it. So never want to see a player go down, but that was big. That was a big loss for the Jaguars. Beathard came in off the bench and led them down the field and looked pretty good. It's not the same, obviously, as having a Trevor Lawrence. So I was just checking to see if there's been anything in terms of talking about Trevor Lawrence's injury. The final last night, that game went into overtime. The final was 34-31. It was a much more entertaining game than I think most people would have expected. You know, you had Cincinnati is without their starting quarterback in Joe Burrow. He got injured. He has his arm in a sling, and the backup quarterback Browning did a really good job. He more than 300 yards. I want to say he threw for like 354. They were really, the game shouldn't have been that close. They had this play that was just the most ridiculous thing ever. I was like, why are you doing that? Deep in your own territory, you toss it back to receiver, let him throw. It was crazy. It was intercepted. And then 2 plays later, or the next play or so, the Jaguars scored a touchdown. That ridiculous trick play cost them 7 points. So anyway, I digress. But when I see things like that, my first question is, why? Like, why are you doing that? It's just, let me see if I can see. No, I thought I had a graphic on the NFL playoffs. So, in the AFC, which is of course the conference that Houston Texans play in, they are 7-5 in the hunt for a wild card spot. There's an off chance that they could still win the division depending on how Jacksonville responds, right? Jacksonville's 8-4. They played each other twice. They split. Houston won the first game in Jacksonville. Jacksonville won the second game in Houston. So, Houston still has to play the Titans twice, also in the division. They play the Colts the last game of the season. This week they travel to New York to take on the Jets. That's a game that you would go, Kim, obviously they should win that game, right? You should, but listen, nothing is a given. Nothing's a given. You can't just say because the Jets aren't very good offensively and that's being kind. You still got to go out and play. And the Jets still do have a really good defense. But that is a game the Houston Texans should win. In fact, let me just tell you the rest of the season in terms of Texans games. All right. So they play this week. They go to New York play the Jets. That's a game that they should win. They've got to play it, but that's a game they should win. Then the next week, they go to Tennessee to face the Titans. That's a game that they also should have a good shot at winning, right? And then they come back home on Christmas Eve to play host to the Cleveland Browns. Deshaun Watson is out for the season, and I think they've had Joe Flacco lately. Am I saying that right? Is who has been the Browns 7-5. Houston's also 7-5. And that's going to be an important game for them. All the rest of their games are with AFC opponents. The Browns also still trying to get in the playoffs at 7-5. That Browns defense is the real deal. So, that's going to be a tough contest. And then they play on New Year's Eve. They play the Tennessee Titans at NRG Stadium. And end the season on the road against the Colts in Indianapolis. So I'm going to just pull up the standings. So in the AFC, right, the Dolphins have the best record in the conference right now at 9-3. So leading right now, the division leaders are, if the playoffs ended today, Miami, Baltimore, Kansas City, and Jacksonville. All right, they're all in. The wild card race would be the next three: Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Indianapolis. So if Houston and Pittsburgh end up with the same record, Houston would win the tiebreak because Houston beat Pittsburgh earlier this season. Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Indianapolis, and Houston are all tied at 7-5, right? So Houston has already played Pittsburgh. They win the tiebreaker with Pittsburgh. They have Cleveland at home on Christmas Eve. They need that win. So if they're tied somehow with Cleveland, they would get in over Cleveland. And Indianapolis won the first game when the Colts and the Texans played. It was the second game of the season. The Texans lost that game at home. They will end the season against the Colts in Indianapolis. That's going to be a huge game, just like it was last year. So the three teams that are right now above them, they face them all. They play Indianapolis twice, and they will play Cleveland. They've already played Pittsburgh. Right behind them, Denver at 6-6, Cincinnati at 6-6, and Buffalo at 6-6, all still trying to get in the playoffs. So the playoff race is tight, right? It's really tight, and it's exciting. But that's where it is now, and so every game counts. And so that's where the Texans are. And to think that talking about the Texans in the hunt for a playoff it's pretty exciting, and it's actually pretty impressive. So with that said, I want to talk about something before I jump over to start talking about the Houston Rockets and also college football. At the game on Sunday, there were a lot of Denver Bronco fans, right, in the lower bowl of the stadium, in their orange, and they were loud. Like one time, C.J. Stroud had to call time because he couldn't hear. Yeah, that you never want that, right, in your home stadium. That the visiting teams fans are so loud, that takes away your, in that moment, home field advantage. I get it. And there was a time when they couldn't hear. Russell Wilson couldn't hear because the Texans fans in the building were also loud. So a couple of things. For the Broncos to have that many seats, it means Texans fans are, sold their tickets, or Texans, Houstonians or Texan holders, sold their tickets. That's one. And so I've heard the criticism this week, not from the players, but I've heard from some fans and some in the media that, man, it's kind of ridiculous. This Houston team they've turned it around, and DeMeco's doing well, and CJ is well, and I absolutely agree. From a football operations side, they're doing a great job. DeMeco has put together a good staff, fielding a good team. The players are going out playing their hearts out, and I get it. But here's the thing about a business, which is what this Texans organization is. Wins matter, clearly, but it's not just about wins and losses. I often tell people I covered this Texans team when they were 2-14, and people still showed up. Texans fans still showed up. So what that says is people not coming back, it's a little bigger than just the games. It's gonna take them a minute, right? Here's kind of the rule of marketing. If you and I'm just going to give you this as an example. So let's say you have a marketing campaign that you put resources toward as a company, pick a company, and maybe it's too soon, it's not ready, it wasn't a great campaign, or the product didn't live up, whatever. You better make sure that you're ready and the messaging and everything is in place, because if you go out with it and it doesn't connect and it doesn't work, you're going to have to spend 3 times the resources to get that customer back. So I use that as an example, although it's a little different. You may say, well, people are like, fans stopped coming because the Texans stopped winning. Yeah, the product has been pretty bad the past since 2020, right? At the end of 2019, the way they lost that game against the Chiefs in the playoffs after they blew that lead, where they had 24 nothing at the half, they lose that game and never really recovered. 2020 is the year that Bill O'Brien got fired, and then 2021, 2022. So they've not been good in a few years. But it also was a culture. There were other things happening with the organization, and you can't just expect people to automatically come back. I think they will. I think there are people who, you know, this is not a knock on the organization. It's just the reality of it doesn't happen quite like that. Okay, well, now we put a good team out. Why isn't everybody back? Some people are like, listen, it takes a minute. I go to the game, I got to pay to park. I've got to, I've got to buy tickets. I've got to pay for sessions. I'm in the building for 4 hours. I'm gonna need to eat something and drink something. So it's an investment of not just my time, but my resources. And I'm not sure I want to make that investment yet because I'm still kind of in the wait and see mode. I can't be mad at people. And so I wasn't embarrassed that there were more Bronco fans, but it is like, oh, wow, look at this. So, if you happen to be a Texans fan, if you were a fan, if you're a person that used to go to games and now you sell your tickets, I would love to hear from you. Not to shame you, just will you ever go back? Are you waiting for something in particular, or is it just kind of a way to see, because the organization hasn't just been bad on the field, they've been bad off the field too. And let's just be honest about that. Are they doing some things right and better? Absolutely. They have made some strides, but it takes a minute. Think about your business, what you may be doing. It doesn't just around because, oh, well, listen, the on the field part is huge. And you could say, well, it's the biggest part, of course, because everything you do is really about the on the field product, but the other parts matter too. And I'm just saying, I think Houston fans will come back. There's some that won't come back. I mean, I've talked to people I know who were 2-income households, season ticket holders since the beginning at PSLs, got rid of their tickets, and for them it was a culture thing. And I said that to a senior person in the organization this off season who looked at me like I had a tail coming out of my head. It was foreign to him. And I said, there's so much more to it. But I'm going to say this, when you have the same people in the room, you don't have many different perspectives in terms of input. Whatever your business is, you could be missing out on some really good intel. You've got to be willing to sit down with people who may think a little differently from you, that have the best interest of what you're doing, and say, hey, what are some things you see? I'm just suggesting that, right? I think it matters. Listen, I'm a journalist, but I'm a businesswoman, and I have to always look at that in terms of how I'm doing business and be willing to take input on, you should be doing this differently. And ultimately, it's my decision, but I've got to be willing to sometimes hear things that are, okay, well, I could have put this differently. I'm just saying it's bigger than wins and losses. So hopefully we said, well, the team deserves so much more. Yeah, you would like to see the team, the players, DeMeco have the support, but real talk, the team is doing their job. They're being compensated. And, I don't ever talk about people's money. If you get paid, you should get it. And I'm for that. But they are doing something that they are being paid to do. And great fan support matters. You guys know I'm a big supporter of DeMeco, right? I am. And most the guys on the team, it's a great group of players. I don't see anybody that I go, man, when he's gone. However, the reality is still the reality. So the players are not complaining. Of course, they would love to have a full house of Texans fans, not have to ask the visiting team's fans to quiet down so your quarterback can hear the play. I'm just saying but it's not quite simple as just wins and losses. Tony says Greg Grissom should hire you as a consultant. They need advice on bringing fans back. Hi there. Yeah, listen, sometimes people like to do things the way they've done it, and they don't. It's difficult, and I see it in businesses, Tony, across the board, not just sports teams, but I've been involved with other businesses and had some impactful roles. But when it comes to decision making and people that we want to entrust, or that they want to entrust, and definitely when you say hire, that they want to pay to provide input and leadership, they like to stay with what's comfortable for them. They don't go outside of that very often. They just don't. So, you know, we will see what happens. But I appreciate you, my friend. Hey, she says, I am a seasoned STM. Is that a season ticket holder who moved to California? I sell my tickets to Texans fans, but I have a friend who bought tickets to make money. He sells to the highest bidder. Absolutely. Hey, Carolyn, it's a business, right? Yes. Season ticket holder, you sell your tickets to Texans fans. You're right. Some people are like, if I'm not going and I'm going to sell my tickets, I'm going to sell them to the highest bidder because I can make back my investment. Oh, wait, I might make some money. I can't really be mad at people for that. So here's the thing. Are you, as an organization, doing enough so that, Carolyn's all the way in California. She's obviously not going to the games, but she's selling her tickets to Texan fans. But what else can the organization do? I'm not going to tell you here because, like Tony said, hire me. I'm actually joking. But what else could you do that's different, that could engage some other fans, that could get people in the building that are Texans fans, so that you're not, one, with so many empty seats, because there were a lot of empty seats, and then two, with so many people there in orange. I was like, what in the world? Yes, Denver travels. They're probably Denver Broncos fans live in the city of Houston, but they travel and they come and they have on their orange, and they were loud. That's all I'm saying. So it is more than just fielding a good team. It is also the business side, the outreach, the what are you doing? Who else are you engaging? Who else are you even listening to? Because if you're continuing to have the same people, or when I say same people, different people, same backgrounds, same perspective, right? Have you pushed the envelope? Have you tried to talk to somebody a little differently and say, what else should we be doing? And here's something else. Like this whole thing, and I get it, right? The culture, you got Bun B and his Trailburgers, and he's there, and then you have a couple of the rappers and Paul Wall. I think all that's cool. But people, I always say this, communities are not a monolith. Black people are not a monolith. If you're reaching somebody like that would, if I wasn't already going to the game, that wouldn't reach me. I wouldn't connect with that particular marketing effort. I get it. I like it. I love the fact that they are, being more inclusive and, but that's not everybody. People who I know who were season ticket holders who are not anymore, that would not bring them back in the fold. It just wouldn't. And so you've got to look at what else is it that we could be doing. And that's all I'm saying, because I do think they're doing some things right. They're doing some good things. And listen, Hannah and Cal have been more visible. They do the radio stations that are a part of the their contract, right? They do the things, but does that reach the whole market? Are there other things that you could be doing? I'm just asking. They're doing a lot of other things well, but you've got to expand beyond that if you want to grow. Tony says, are they still doing Clay Walker for the pregame? Not every week, not every week. They mix it up. They have different people. They have had different folks in terms of the pregame. You're gonna see Clay Walker a lot at the Astros, right? Because Clay Walker's just gonna sing the anthem in this market. But you've got to do some, and you've got to be willing to say, maybe I need some different voices. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Maybe I need some different voices because the product is getting better. It absolutely is. It's a fun product, and it would be cool for these guys to have more people supporting and showing up. And they do. When the fans come, the fans who show up have been loud. They've done a great job. But I push back on the feeling bad for the players a little bit because the players are doing a job. This isn't a volunteer business, and I don't say that with any kind of, well, they should. I mean, it's what they do, right? And so, yeah, the other part, what the players need is for everybody to be putting in to the product what they're doing. How about that? Everybody should be putting into it. Carol Kennedy used to have a lot of free events for us to come and meet the players. I am an inaugural season ticket holder. Yeah, I mean, they did used to have that. They did used to do some other things. And I know after COVID, some stuff shifted. This problem it predates COVID in terms of just, kind of mindset, I think. But you're right, during the season, different because the players are obviously, working, they get one off day. And oftentimes they're doing treatment and others on that one day, which is Tuesday, or they're doing community events. So they still do community events, but you're right. It has to be a focus. And you've got to just think community a little differently, I think. But anyway, they're not paying me to fix any of that. But I just want to have a conversation about, man, Texas Houstonians it's an embarrassment because no. Mm-mm. I get it. It's what happens in business. And so when you lose fans, you've got to do even more than get them back, right? As a person who covered the team when they won 2 games and lost 14 and people were still in the stands, I'm telling you, it's more than just wins and losses. Wins and losses are very important. DeMeco and CJ and Bobby Slowick and Matt Burke and go and list people, they're doing their part. Everybody needs to do their part. So, but I'm excited for the future and what this team could possibly do. Before we go to basketball, I just want to talk really briefly about the college football playoffs. Okay. I was on Channel 11 the other night, and the question was, did the committee get it right? And I said no. And my real answer is yes and no. So I say no because how is Georgia not one of the final 4, right? And Florida State, who did everything they were supposed to do, won conference championship, finished undefeated, and they still were left out. The reason that I say why I said no, yes, because the system is designed for 4 teams to be in the finals, to be in the playoff. You've got 5 conferences. It's a power 5. So always one of your conference champions is not going to get in. So really it's flawed in how it's made. I think the fact that the committee doesn't tell you how they vote, it's very secretive. That lack of transparency makes it difficult for people. It's like I believe what I see. And here's the other part. I get it. Last year, TCU being in the championship, Alabama was not in. For people who say they get in every year, Alabama was 5 last year. They were not in. TCU was in. They got blown out 67. They don't want that kind of a national championship, right? They don't want that to happen. But what is it that Florida State could have done differently? You could say, well, if you're Texas and you don't get in, you shouldn't have lost to Oklahoma. If you're Alabama and you don't get in, you shouldn't have lost to Texas. I mean, you could go down the road with a number of those. it's a flawed system. And a lot of it is about the eye test. Deion Sanders said the quiet part out loud yesterday on Good Morning America. He is probably the most famous, infamous, whatever you want to call it, Florida State former football player. And he said, listen, Coach Norville, who was passionate, what he said made a lot of sense. But basically, they ain't leaving Alabama out because Nick Saban is the godfather. Well, like I mentioned, Alabama didn't get in last year. But what he said kind of plays into or feeds into a lot of the conversation people are having. They're not going to not have an SEC team in the Final Four. But I'm just saying it's a flawed system. The idea that a committee of 13 people sits in a room and decides who should be there is always kind of a problem, Tony has a comment. He says about the Texans, I'll probably never go to another game unless corporate gives me tickets. It's better sitting at home in front of a big screen. And that's another thing. It's more comfortable. You get the replay. You can have your own snacks. I get it, right? So it's that part too. It's a number of things, right? It's not even just the wins and losses. That's huge, as I said earlier. But what they're competing with is what Tony just said. It's more comfortable at home, right? And I don't have to deal with parking. If I'm at home, I get the replays at home. I can have my own snacks at home. And I think that's the case for a lot of people in a lot of things. I mean, ask the movie industry. I mean, it's a lot. So that's a great point, Tony. Thank you for sharing that. So listen, said this is the Texans' year. They have the best path here. New Orleans, then coming to Houston. This is Texas's year. They had the best path. Yeah, you're talking about UT. It is, because that's going to be a great game, right? So, and then you have Texas playing Washington. Washington is a game you think they can win that game. Then they're in the national championship, right? So they play the Sugar Bowl. They will play in New Orleans. They will play against Washington. If they win that game, they'll come play the championship here at NRG Stadium. So kind of almost like a home game for them, right? And they could win the national championship. It is a great path for Texas. The Tax Act Bowl, which is the bowl that is played at NRG Stadium, it's a matchup of the SEC and the Big 12. And so this year, it is Oklahoma State and Texas A&M University. Here is David Fletcher of the Tax Act Bowl talking about the matchup, and it's also a rematch.
The Big 12 SEC matchup is now in its 10th year, and we're very excited to welcome back a rematch from 2019 as Oklahoma State, 20th ranked in the country, comes in to take on the Texas A&M Fighting Aggies. Really, just can't thank the support of the conferences of those schools and their student athletes, their coaches, and their fans for what I know will be a magical week here in Houston as we celebrate the culture, heritage, and football tradition of the Lone Star State.
What do you remember about that game? It was a kind of back and forth battle. You had Chuba Hubbard go for 2,000 yards, and then Kellen Mond kind of goes off in the fourth quarter. Yeah,
I mean, I think you summed it up well, but a lot of the things you saw in that 2019 matchup are very similar to what we saw or what we will see here. Oklahoma State comes in as a ranked team. They've got a great running attack with the Big 12 Player of the Year on the offensive side in Ollie Gordon. Texas A&M is in transition, but a ton of really talented athletes on that side of the ball. They're going to play hard. They're going to play well, and it's going to be a full house in here in NRG, which is going to make it for another really great atmosphere for this game.
That was David Fletcher of the Tax Act Bowl. Okay, quickly before we get out of here, I got to tell you a little bit about Houston Rockets. The Houston Rockets, obviously a much better brand of basketball than we've seen in recent years. Right now, they have an 8-9 record. They've fallen under 500. They struggle on the road, right? They are 0-8 on the road. They've not won a road game yet. So that is their Achilles heel. They've got to try to get a road win. Their last two games they lost were Denver and at the Lakers. It seems like they play the Lakers or Denver like every other week. And good games. They were in that game. They started off well against the Lakers, and then they didn't. Right? There was some drama late with one of the Reddish and Tyree Eason. And then, of course, Ime Udoka was tossed from that game because he and LeBron had changed some words on the sideline. It wasn't volatile, anything like that, but they did change some words. And they were both teched up. Ime had double tech, so he was tossed from the game. The game, he talked about, he has said that he made a comment about it felt like his team was kind of punked against the Lakers. He's about them being tough and playing, with some physicality, being consistent. And so we got a chance to talk to him yesterday at practice. And I'm apologizing in advance, Tony, when we talked to them on that practice court. Sometimes I hope the audio is better this week, but with the basketballs in the background, there's always some background noise. But here is Ime after practice yesterday talking about how they played the Lakers and why he made
in Los Angeles. How do you think they responded to that in today and recent days?
We'll see when the game happens. I mean, it's competitive spirit of practice today. My main thing is, playing with a certain effort that it takes to win every night. And but we had some slippage on the road trip in a lot of areas, so we addressed some of those. Had a good film session looking at the areas we can improve on. And when you have a little bit of success, you got to continue to build on that and improve. And that's where I felt like we had some slippage. Whether it was consciously, subconsciously, guys, getting a little comfortable and want to get back to what we did well, guarding the way we did, playing unselfish basketball.
Is this the first time that you've felt there's been an effort slippage this season?
I would say for the most part, I love how hard we play. The thing with specifically LA is that when you're playing certain teams, you have certain advantages. And one is in the effort category, multiple efforts, 50-50 balls, and I felt like they were the team that played harder as far as that. So, I would say yes overall because I've been happy with how hard we play and the effort we play with the competitiveness, and so that's why I made that comment.
So that was Ime Udoka, who talked about what he meant. They had some slippage, and he wants them to be physical and consistent. And defense, obviously, is a pillar of what they do. The last 3 games they played on the road, they lost at Dallas 115-121. They lost at Denver 124-131, and then the Lakers game, they lost 97-107. The first quarter, they came out in that game against the Lakers, and they play well. I mean, it looked good. They were at the end of the first quarter, they were up 30-25. And then the second quarter, they only scored 14 points. They scored 14 points to the Lakers 35. So no one at the half, down 44-60, right? They're down. And so then the rest of the way, they outscored the Lakers 28-26 in the third quarter, and they outscored them in the fourth 25-21. But you get down so much, right? You get behind so far that you never quite make up that ground. And so that was what he was talking about. Next up tomorrow night, let me go back. They play Oklahoma City, which should be an interesting game. Here at Energy Stadium, at the Toyota Center. They go on the road to play Denver yet again. They come back 2 games against the Spurs. So Victor Wembanyama and the Spurs will be in town next Monday. That's the 11th. And then on the 13th, they will play the Grizzlies again here at Toyota Center before heading back on the road. So home tomorrow night, on the road, and then home for 2 games. So they need to win at home, but they definitely have to get a win. They've got to get into the win column on the road. Tony says Steven Silas is the lead assistant on a Piston team that has lost 18 in a row. He might be the cause of long streaks. No, just come on, Tony. I know you're laughing. I'm not going to put that on Steven. I will say here, obviously, what Ime is doing is working, but there's a couple of things that Ime has that Steven Silas did not. He's got a much better roster, for one. And secondly, he has autonomy. That makes a huge difference. I mean, Ime is coaching this team and running it the way he thinks it should be run. He's running practice, he's making the decisions about what they run and how they do it. And that makes a difference. So he's got those things. Is he a better coach than Ime? Well, Ime's record says yes. Ime, what he did with Boston when he took the Celtics, that first year Celtics team, to championship, and what he's come in and how this team looks. So, but I don't want to make it a Silas versus Udoka thing. Like, they got to win a game on the road, right? They're 0-8. They're winless on the road. That has got to stop. They've got to get a road win. So we'll see what happens. All right. I will let you hear before we go from Dillon Brooks. I like Dillon Brooks. I think we've gotten more from Dillon Brooks than I expected when they brought him in. And here's Dillon Brooks talking about, the game against the Lakers and just the exchange and what happened with Ime.
Head coach getting kind of a spat with LeBron, a back and forth. What were you thinking as a player, and what do you think your team took away from that?
I tried to, push the ball out the way from it. The refs just let it get out of hand. Terrible group out there that was roughing. And they lost control of the game. It was very inconsistent. That's what you get from inconsistent refs. It's a whole bunch of nonsense.
What do you think about Ime, kind of specifically him as a tone setter, a guy that isn't going to back down even against a guy like LeBron, per se?
He wasn't back down to anybody. He played the game before. We're still fighting each other, finding identity as a team. And, with our coach, standing up for us is a big thing.
Is it your goal to establish that with your team?
Yeah. So no one just comes and funks us at any given time.
So that was Dillon Brooks, and I'm going to tell you the official who gave the tease and Ime is Johnny Orr. He has officiated 546 regular season games, 11 seasons. He's never been an official in a finals game. I'm just saying. I'm not saying he's not great at what he does. I'm saying he's not great at what he does. You've never been on. You've in 11 years. This is your 12th year. You've never on a finals crew. I'm just going to leave that right there. All right, everybody. As always, thank you for being a part of Chalk Talk. I appreciate you. Remember, it is election season in Houston. Today is the last day to early vote. If you did not vote, or if you did vote, as long as you're registered to vote, you can go today. There are 41 locations in Harris County and 3 in Fort Bend. If you can't go today, if you're one of those people, I have some friends that have to vote election day. It might be raining, but if you're okay with that, you can vote on Saturday. That is the actual election day. So vote today or vote Saturday, but whatever you do, make sure you vote. All right. Remember, follow me across all my platforms. Let me hear from you. Maybe you connect with me so I can tell you about some things coming up. I'm going to be doing some live broadcasts, some on location shows, and I'd love for some of you guys to come out and say hi. It would be super cool. And listen, be safe out there. Remember, do something kind for yourself and do something kind for somebody else. Make it a great, great week. I'll see you next Tuesday on Chalk Talk. In the meantime, peace.